Welcome to the greatest place in the world, my doghouse. Hope you're all having a great day. This is going to be my perspective on small towns. I grew up in a very small community until I was 19 years old, you know, so a lot of people have more experience at that point in bigger cities. But I'm giving a perspective of what it was like, and I still know people around the area where I lived and how much it hasn't changed. I'm 65 now. I left at 19, and like I said, it hasn't changed a whole lot. Small towns have their own idea of things. Small towns will take care of problems that exist you'll never know about. A good example of that is like the town I live, well, I didn't live in town. The closest town was about 20 some miles away. The biggest town from Howe was about 24 miles away. That's where the sheriff department and everything else was. Once in a while, you get somebody they swear in as a deputy in case they need to file reports and stuff like that. But at times, there was nobody. And an example of how small towns react to certain situations. I remember one time that the restaurant that was there at the time it don't exist anymore. Not because of this, just because people going through and people not going through that small town. The town was not incorporated, but they had a restaurant there, and this guy beat his wife. Well, several people in town decided they were going to go in and take care of the problem. That problem was the owner of the establishment. Well, this guy caught on to what was going on. He drove 24 miles to get protection from the sheriff. And that really did happen. If them guys would have ever caught him, they might have not unalived him, but they would have beat him. And I guarantee you, every one of them that went out there and was going to do this, and the sheriff know who they was because the guys followed this other guy right into town. But every one of them would have had an alibi and people backing them up. They weren't there. They were with us. Or that's how small towns work. It may take time at times, but sometimes they have their own justice. They don't wait for the police. I'm not saying it's right by any means. They should wait for the police, but that don't necessarily happen. But anyway, this guy's wife refused to press charges against him. So the next step was everybody stopped going to the restaurant and they had to get rid of it. Justice was done without the police in this case. Another time, and you don't know the name. I don't know of anybody that actually was unalived or anything else in that area. But I wouldn't know because when things like this happen, it's a select few that know and nobody else will ever know. That's like another example was these couple of guys. Evidently, they were there to start a fight, just to have a fight. They acted like they had problems with their pickup, so these two other guys stopped. Well, they attacked them, or these two that thought they had a problem with, which they lied about, tried to attack these guys, took a gun out or two, I'm not sure how many, but they got beat up with shovels. The guns were, and the guys had to leave, and they was told to leave, but they didn't leave with their guns. And you'll never know who did it because they're going to have a backup to where they were. And in a small town like that, you can get a back up where you were pretty easy. Once again, I'm not saying that's right, but that's what happens. Now, from where I'm at, people would move in the area, which was good. Everybody liked new people coming in. And some people in other areas try to make, oh, we moved in, they didn't like us or whatever. Well, here's the thing, you love people to move in, you enjoy people moving in. When you move in, you don't bring your ideas here and try to force your ideas on a small town. It won't work. It may to a point, but then people that come in there and with that idea, there wasn't a lot of them, but you know what? They'd sell their ranch or their farm after a short period of time because their results wasn't what they wanted. They'd move in and think they was going to take over everything, and it wound up as that wasn't the case. And this happened sometimes, not a lot, but it did happen. Small areas try to take care of each other, and small areas actually will help others. Even if they might not like them, they will be there to help. And that's a true way I was growing up. There was people that didn't care for the others, but if they needed help, they was there to help them because it was a community of people willing to help each other. And I know in Otter Creek it's the same way. I bet you most of them people there love each other, and the ones that don't are still willing to help the others. And whether it's where I grew up, Otter Creek, that's mainly the thing that's out there mostly right now. And one guy said, well, I'm going to make it famous. He's not really making it famous, he's making it a joke. And I know just from being in a small town, I don't care where I at or somewhere else at, I know some of the feelings that's going to come in. No, this guy, they weren't upset he moved in as an outsider. They're upset that he was trying to change their ways of life, which he had no damn business of doing because small towns eventually will stand up, and that guy has no chance when they start to do that. A narcissist will think he does, but not really. He can think that way all he wants. It won't work. This comes from a guy that grew up in a small valley, and it was smaller than the town of Otter Creek. By the way, it was even smaller than that. But when you have people willing to stand up, yeah, you get bullied sometimes, especially if you got a place where there's a lot of older people. But eventually, people will stand up for them. People will go all out to help them. As much as somebody tries to destroy them, others will stand up. I don't care if you're from where I'm at, from Otter Creek, or anywhere else. Once you live in a small town like that, or small area, I never lived in town, but that feeling never goes away. I left at 19. I did go back once to one winter to help haul hay, plus because he had two ranches, plus help with cabin after that. Then I left after cabin season. And outside that, I was never involved again in ranching in any shape or form. I never lived in another small community like that, but my community I grew up in, my heart is always there, and that is really where my home is. Not criticizing at all where I'm at now, but that's just how you do things. But small towns will stand up for each other. And it's not being offensive to somebody moves in at all. It's you don't move in and try to dictate to what's going on anywhere, any town, anytime. Some of the greatest people in this world are from small towns that have a heart of gold that people will never, never know, but that heart of gold is there and they know how to love others. There will be always exceptions. You can't get away from that. But as a whole, they stand up for each other. And like I said, they could be some people that don't like each other. Does not matter. But they will stand up for what is right. And when you're doing what is wrong and you get other people to come in the case of Otter Creek, people that are not even from there are the ones that are being brought in to change things. And it hasn't worked. And sometimes when you're wrong, you keep doing wrong because you know you're wrong is still wrong, but you can't change to right because you dug yourself a hole. And I've seen that where I grew up too. They wound up selling out and getting out because people will not stand for that in small towns. You may think you can go in and take over a small town, even if that wasn't your intentions, but when you get there, you think you can take over and run a small town. It's not going to happen. It's a pipe dream of yours, but people will stand up. Eventually, I don't care how old somebody is or how young somebody is, that idea and that concept of being from a small town will prevail. Don't take people from small towns for granted. They know what the hell they're doing. I, like I said, I grew up around it, been around it, and seen it. And for all these years, it is the exact same thing. The only thing you got now is cell phones. We didn't have them back then. And you have internet. We didn't have that. So that they all have that now, even out there where I'm at, even in Otter Creek. But that wasn't always the case. So you get more information now. But one information that'll never come out is how people react to different people and how they will take care of their own. And like I said, I am not for violence at all. Don't get me wrong, but they will take care of their own. You may not think so because you're not from a small town. Uh, some people have a hard way of finding out. And like I said, you could have something happen. That person's involved's the only one that know about it. They don't sit there and brag about what they did. They do it and they move on. It's just the way it is in small areas. They don't sit there and pat themselves on the back. They go forward. People trying to change how people are in small towns will sit there and pat themselves on the back and say how great they are. Well, while they're patting themselves on the back saying how great they are, there's a whole lot of other people that's just laughing at them because they know that they will prevail. The ones that are patting themselves on the back will lose in the end. Don't take people from small towns for granted. Don't anywhere. I've seen how that works out. I've been part of a small town, so I know what I've seen and what people's telling me now in the area where I used to live. Hasn't changed a lot. That means people like our places like Otter Creek, means they haven't changed that much either. But they will stand up to an outsider that thinks he can change what they are up to, and they will stand up to them. But if that same person come to town and say, "Hey, I want to be part of this community," you you are welcomed with open arms in most cases. Very few places are offended because you come in. You offend people when you try to change their way of life. Don't come in and think, well, they're going to do what I say or they can leave. No, you can leave and they can go on with their life. Quit trying to dictate to how they should be. Never, never do that. Eventually, these small towns prevail and will stand up for what is right. Them few people that think it's okay will find out, even in the small towns, that the majority will rule. We've come to a society where small guys in small areas are just stupid hicks, and that's what a lot of people think. Not the truth, but that's how it is. They take care of their own. They will always take care of their own. You just have to decide whether you want to be part of that community or dictate to that community what you want. When you dictate to that community, you're going to be on the short end of the stick. When you come in telling people this is how it's going to be, eventually they will tell you how it is. You may not believe that, but once again, have you lived in a small town like that or a small valley like that? I have. I've seen it. So think about it. Do you really want to be part of that community or do you want to try and dictate that community? In the case of Otter Creek, one guy, like I said, most of them are outsiders as far as where they originally come from. And I don't mean the area. I know he has the thing say, well, he lived outside that area and moved into town. That's not what they're talking about. And you know it. But when you get people from other places to come in and try to dictate to them what they're going to do, and you're right, they're wrong, and I don't care how many people you put in there, towns will stand up for what they believe. Small towns will stand up for what they believe. Sometimes it takes little bit longer because the resources may not be there, but in the end, small towns will prevail. Small areas will prevail. Like I said, I grew up out on a ranch in the middle of nowhere, but everything, even the post office, said how. And Arco was farther, 24 miles away from there. But Otter Creek and where I grew up is very, very similar. I mean, some of the values might variance because Idaho to Florida, is a little bit different. But one value that will always remain is the heart of people growing up in small towns across this country will stand up whether they are living there now or not. People from small towns will always have a place in their heart for small towns and will recognize problems in a small town probably before a big town. If some of this stuff, this like the guy in Otter Creek or other areas, were in bigger towns, it would probably never be recognized. But people from small towns will recognize it. So just remember, don't think because people are from a small town they are fools. They will prevail over you. It's just how far do you want to take it before you're taken down? Small towns rule their own areas and will remain ruling their own areas. You can lie or whatever you want, but the small towns will prevail in the end.